Cardinal Nation, what's happening? Listen, I want to thank you for tuning in for today's amazing and phenomenal episode of what? The CardinOLL podcast. But before we jump into the classroom, this is what I want you to do. I want you to do whatever platform you're viewing this on. YouTube, Anchor, Google Podcasts. I need you to like, subscribe, and make some comments on any of our social media platforms. I want to hear from you. I want to know what you think about the CardinOLL podcast. So, as you know, this podcast is the one and the only classroom podcast that is designed to interview industry leaders so that we can gain their insight and expertise, AKA their golden nuggets, also known as courage, right? So that we can help take your leadership and your learning to the next level immediately. Let me start off with a quote like I always do. Today's quote comes from investor and economic expert Warren Buffett. He said this. He said, "It's better to hang on and to hang out with people that are better than you." I want you to pick out associates whose behaviors are better than yours, and soon you will find yourself drifting in that direction. Oh, what an awesome quote by the one and the only Warren Buffett. I want you to know this. We on the CardinOLL podcast are going to interview some great people, some phenomenal people, some amazing people, and you can find yourself drifting in their direction. So I want you to join me all this month with all of our amazing and phenomenal guests, because I promise you they will help take your leadership and your learning to the next level. No doubt. All right, you know what you need to do. I want you to go get your memo boards, your pens, your pencils, your notepads. You know, like I tell you every single week before we get into the classroom, get anything you can take a note with. iPad, iBoard, notepad, pencil, crayon. I don't care. Go get it. Join me as we head into the classroom with today's amazing and phenomenal guests so they can give us some courage so that you will learn to lead and learn like never before. Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a treat today. I have a great guest, a phenomenal guest. For our viewing audience, you'll see her right on the screen. For our listening audience, in just 1 second, I will introduce you and you'll hear her phenomenal voice. You'll hear her energy. She's excited to be here. I'm excited to be here. Cardinal Nation, you are in for a treat today. I promise you, you will not be disappointed in what's about to happen today. I want to introduce to some, present to many others, to one, the only. She's the program director of our Master of Arts in Higher Education Administration. We're going to dig deep into that today because higher education, you're going to in for a treat today. You need to know why we're producing some phenomenal students out of this program. But ladies and gentlemen, she's the one, she's the only, she's the venerable Jess Buckley. Jess, how you doing today?
Hey, it's great to see you, Dr. Owens. And I mean, can you like follow me? Can I follow you around? I'll just like follow you and you can introduce me wherever I go and make me sound cooler than I am. So glad to be here and excited to be with the Cardinal Nation today. I love the Cardinal program, Cardinal students, Cardinal faculty, such as Dr. Owens, and great to be a part of the team. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. But listen, what some people may not even know, listen, Cardinal Nation, she was once the program director of the OLL program. She was running the show at one point in time. We won't really get into that today because I'm sure there's some great stories, but you know, that's not why we got her here today. But just so Cardinal Nation knows, she's really one of us like none other. But Jess, here on the CardinOLL podcast, we like to take Cardinal Nation and we like to see if we can take their leadership and their learning to the next level as fast as we possibly can. So if you don't mind, can we jump into the pool head first into the deep end? Here we go. First question, ask all the guests. Everybody wants to know. It's the $1 million question of the podcast. How do you define leadership?
You know, I share that I'm always asking the questions, and now you're turning the table on me. So I really had to think about this. I knew you were going to ask this one because you ask everybody. And I thought a long time, and I thought also about my history of thinking about leadership. And so here's the basics. I think that leadership is engaging others in achieving shared goals in healthy ways and with ethical principles. And so there are a couple things I'm going to highlight. Okay. I was in, I think, high school at some youth leadership development thing at Birmingham Southern College. So shout out to youth development people. What you do matters. I still remember this, right? From like 30 years ago. I don't know. And it was the first time anybody had asked me to think about, can a leader be unethical, right? I think the famous example is Hitler, right? Is Hitler a leader? And I think that was the start of my belief in like forming this idea that no, Like if you're a leader and you're unethical, maybe you're a crook, maybe you're a bully, maybe you're an influencer, but you are not a leader. And that can be controversial, I think, in some definitions of leadership.
Mhm.
So ethical principle. And second, I think healthy ways, especially now in the middle of COVID, people are literally dying in the face of progress and continuation and meet the goal and meet the bottom line. And that's not healthy. So I think a real leader moves us forward, gets those goals, tells us to rest and restore and not always progress and develop and achieve.
This is the first time in 20 or 30 episodes I'm speechless.
Well, maybe that's a good thing or a bad thing. We'll see. We can throw down a debate of think about some of those ideas.
That is phenomenal. Okay, can you repeat that entire definition again? I started with engaging others, and can you? I mean, I don't know if you memorized
Yeah,
or if
let's
you
see
ever
if I
written
can
down.
get it. But so I
Okay,
think some of the key terms: engaging others and
right.
achieving shared goals. We could go into shared too. I could spiel on that in
Okay,
healthy ways and with ethical principles.
man, listen, I love that definition. You should coin that. Maybe it is coined. Maybe you already have it.
I probably stole it from 100 other people that I read, right? Like it's a combination of lots of people. But you really made me think about it. Like, what is this? What is this thing? And I think that two things that really are sticking points for me are ethics and morals, and healthy gathering, encouraging people to be their best, and not for the sake of efficiency or progress or money, but for the sake of the good of all.
You have. Okay. I'm not going to get to any more questions in this category, so scratch them all out. We're just going to dive into this definition.
Let's do it.
Engaging others. So engaging others. No one said that. We've hinted around it, right?
Mhm.
Out of all the guests, everyone's hinted around it. Achieving shared goals. I think that's kind of a common whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Healthy ways. No one's mentioned. Ethics. No one's mentioned. So out of your 4 key terms, 3 of them have never been mentioned, and we've had some phenomenal guests, and I'm not taking anything away from any of our other guests, but engaging others.
Mm.
Okay, you know what? Let's not even go there. Let's go. You
We
mentioned
can
it.
go
You
there.
talked
There's
about.
a big term in higher ed.
Let's talk about.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to engage, and I don't know what the best way is, but there's what I like to say. There's equifinality in that process, right?
Mm.
There's multiple ways to skin that cat. You can engage people in lots of different ways.
Sure.
But you said achieving shared goals or achieving a shared way. Tell me about that.
I think that the way that we can move forward is when everyone has a seat at the table and we
Mhm.
kind of come to some agreement on what we're moving for, what are we achieving. And I think that can look differently. Your team might be your family, your team might be your organization where you work, it might be a team in a class, but you need to have some mutual understanding around what you're aiming for it to have any success. So I think the idea of shared is that a leader needs to at some point make some decisions sometimes, right, among lots of different goals and prioritize. But we can't do that with input from everybody who's a part of the table, and maybe people who should be a part of the table that haven't been.
Wow. Okay. One thing I have learned in my journey of leadership, when decisions need to be made, I always ask: are the people who need to help make the decision, are they at the table, and who's missing?
Great question.
I have learned to ask that question because there have been so many missteps that I've made personally as a leader, where everyone who needed to be at the table wasn't at the table or wasn't even asked to be at the table. Like they could have made time to be there. They just weren't there because no one thought it was important or whatever.
Sure.
And then you make a decision and then you realize because that person's voice wasn't at the table, no matter how large or small it was, that role was so critical that the mission can't even be pulled off now because they can't do it. They don't have the resources. They don't have the staff, the personnel, the information, the technology. And you're like, oh, wow, we just spent 4 hours deliberating this. And
Absolutely.
The one IT person who needed to be at the table to make it all work is telling me, no, those systems don't even communicate. So how are you going to pull this off? And you're like, oh, that's terrible.
Absolutely. But I think that's a part of, I know some of the things you asked too about learning. And I think that's a part of organizational learning too, is like, we may have those moments where people aren't there who should be there, or we make decisions that we later learn were bad decisions. And maybe that's a healthy way thing, is to admit that we were wrong. And that's a part of learning, right? We have to admit that there is something that we can grow and we can change. And so then we invite the people and we redo the process.
Oh man. Oh man. Okay. I have to keep going. Even though I don't want to. We can sit there and talk about those principles all day. But I'm going to skip around a little bit. So here's a question I want to ask you, right? Because you mentioned Hitler, right? And I've mentioned him in several other interviews because I think it was in the 20th century he was considered to be the greatest leader, right? Because obviously using certain definitions, depending on what your definition was.
Absolutely.
Right. He's considered to be the greatest leader. He rallied people, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? They accomplished a goal, right, wrong, or indifferent. Right. And so, but the question then becomes, now we have engagement, achieving shared ways, achieving shared goals, having healthy ways, having an an ethical principle behind you. Who do you think best exemplifies your definition of leadership?
Oh man. I think that I'm a firm believer that we all have our strengths and weaknesses. So I don't know if I have one single person who is like the model, but I have a lot of people that I follow. I mean, I think my mom and dad are great ethical leaders and have ethical principles that they stand for. I think that ever since I've been little, I've been a follower of Mother Teresa and the work that she has done with people who are dying and poor and no one cares for, and like leading a whole group of people around caring for those folks. I think my epic co-leader and co-partner in all things, the Mr. Dr. David Buckley, who's my best half, is a great leader. And then I have teachers along the way. I mean, my 8th grade math teacher, Mrs. McGreeny, my doctoral advisor, Dr. Stephen Quay. I have all of these folks in my life that I think give me pieces of what does it mean to be healthy and to be strong in your own ways of doing things, sometimes in a way that's not the way the organization will have you do it, but also in a way that's caring for others and upholds good principles as you lead groups to meet their goals.
I love it. I love that your list is exhaustive. It's personal. It's professional. It covers a lot of, it's even aspirational to some degree.
Sure.
With Mother Teresa out there, like who doesn't want to be like Mother Teresa
Right?
at the end of the day? Like, no matter your race, color, creed, or origin, like if you have something against Mother Teresa, like there's really something wrong with you. There's right. You know what I mean?
No, I have good stories from her too about, there was a time where I was in the Jesuit Volunteer Corps for a year, and I knew I wanted to work in higher ed. I love higher ed. We can get to that portion of the interview, but I thought about how Mother Teresa was really out there serving the poor, the people most in need. And I'm like, if I'm going into higher ed, I'm going into a place where some folks have some kind of resources. Not everybody. I know that it is hard to be in college and to afford college and to just make it through. I mean, it is a journey, but there's an element of privilege of being in a college environment. And I thought, is this the way to serve? And I had an advisor, a mentor along the way who said, he had met Mother Teresa, and she said, you need to serve where you have the best talent that meets the world's greatest need. And not everyone is called to live in the slums of their countries or of their world. Everyone has a different calling, a different need. So that voice rings into my ear sometimes, is that we all have our calling, we have our place to serve. And that doesn't mean that we all have to serve in the same way as each other. We each have a place to sort of be the leader we want to be.
That's amazing. I like that. Definitely gonna put that may be your moniker. No, I don't know. We got a lot more interview to cover. I can't say we've covered greatness already. I don't know. I don't even know where this interview is going, to be perfectly honest. Like I really want to just throw the questions away and do something else, but I'm going to stick to the script.
No, go for it. I love the questions.
So let's ask this, right? Everyone wants to know what fuels you. What's your motivation? What inspires you to be great?
I asked
for those that don't know, Jess is great. She may not say it. She may not admonish it. I'll say it for her, right? Because I'll pour the praises on her. She's great, but I want to know what drives you. What puts the gas in your engine to go and keep going?
You are most kind. I do. I want to heavy with me everywhere I go. I believe in myself because Dr. Owens believes in me. Sometimes I ask leaders that I love this very question because it's cool to try to think about what is it that motivates me. And I think, there are two things that come to mind that are maybe little vignettes of the same flip side of the same coin. So one I'm going to pull from my all-time philosophical guide and model, and that is Calvin and Hobbes, the comic strip by Bill Watterson. And there is comic strip where like Calvin, who's like a 6-year-old kid, right, is climbing this rock and he's telling his buddy Hobbs, for people who don't read this comic strip, who is his stuffed pet that like comes to life when no one else is around, right? He's telling Hobbs, basically that all of humanity and like thousands and millions of years of humans and like earth formation have all culminated for me, my existence. And so like that's one flip side of the coin, right? And the other side of the coin is a quote that I love from Elie Wiesel, and I have it kind of all over the place in little spots that mean something to me. But basically what his son is saying is like, I am standing on the shoulders of giants, and I have come from generations of moms and dads and grandmoms and granddads and teachers who have led to me being able to do anything I can do. And I think both of those are kind of the flip side. Like, be confident. I have like my moment in time. I am unique. I have like, the world has like led to my being here. But at the flip side, like that's a lot of responsibility. I mean, thousands of generations, thousands of people sacrificing in ways that I don't even know that came before me. Sometimes I try to list all of my teachers, right? Like there's like thousands of people who teach us. And so I think what motivates me is those two flip sides. One, like the confidence that we are in a unique moment and a unique time that we can uniquely make a gift, give a gift to the world. Mm-hmm. But also like there's some responsibility to do that. Like there's been sacrifice in people along the way. So those are my flip sides. I think same coin, but confidence and also a little bit of like humility and stay in your place as well.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I think, when we were interviewing Amobi, I think that's what his biggest thing was. It was about humility, right? It's like, I'm smart enough to know that when the light's on me, right? I'm smart enough, like you said, I'm smart enough to know that I'm standing on or standing behind or standing with the help of other people, right? And I even mentioned this to our good friend, Dr. Shuck. I posted in one of his moments. He was talking about how everyone in his neighborhood kind of waves at each other. I don't know if you saw that where he posted that. Yeah. And I said, it seems like you have like a culture of sawubona. So sawubona is the Zulu term that means I see you. But it doesn't mean like I see you with my eyes. It means I see you like through the generation, like my ancestors see. Like when you see someone, you see them for who they are in their present, but you also acknowledge that my whole tribe sees you as well. So when I see you, the world sees you, so to speak, and everyone in my world. And so it seems like that's kind of like the Jess, Buckley, sawubona. I'm standing on the shoulders of greatness. And when you see me, there are hundreds of teachers, hundreds of influencers that even though they may see you, but they're really seeing all of them shine through you.
I love that idea. And that sort of idea that like it takes, there's a whole like, I don't know, background to all of us, all of those people, all of those ancestors. Or what if we like met each other, with like that kind of understanding is like who people are coming and bringing with them and like the beauty that is, each person and what we can do together. I mean, I think we'd have a lot more confidence and compassion and all those things.
Definitely.
I like that. I love that term. What's the term again?
It's sawubona.
Sawubona.
Yeah. So it just means I see you. And then obviously there's several different variations to respond to it, but the most popular one I think is Nabu Sawubona, which is mean we see you as well. Right. So the response is not I see you, it's that we see you.
Yeah.
Right. So you saw me with all of your tribe, and then we see you as we're acknowledging one another. So I think it's just an awesome acknowledgement, and it kind of just reminded me when you were making the comment that you stand on the shoulders of giants, and these giants are behind you, and these teachers and these influence, and there's mom and there's dad and her husband and there's Mother Teresa, and there's all these people that are just kind of beaming through you, because that's kind of makes you who you are and to who we see today. And that's amazing, by the way. Sure.
And that's a gift to have all of those people. I know like some folks may be listening out there today who feel like, man, who are my people? Right. And I wish for everyone that they do find those people. Right. And
remember
that there are folks that are behind them.
Definitely. Okay. So we could talk about leadership all day. Clearly we can talk about leadership all day. There are approximately 1.3 million adults who have some college and no degree. Are you an industry professional who is ready to get promoted and ready to lead? Well, if you want to learn to lead like never before, and if you want to learn to lead with empathy, expertise, and compassion, That's right. If you want to be the game changer that your industry so desperately needs, here's what I need you to do. I need you to go to your phone or your mobile device, and I need you to do something for me. Once you open up your internet browser and type in uofl.me/BSOLL-podcast. Again, that's uofl.me/BSOLL-podcast. Once the browser opens up, you're going to figure out, and we're going to show you how you can save money and time towards your degree. We're going to talk to you about, on that website, a thing we call PLA, Prior Learning Assessment. That's how you can get college credit for industry expertise and experiences you've already learned. You're also going to learn about our 9 amazing degree tracks. You're going to be able to request information and more information about these 9 degree tracks, as well as you're going to be able to sign up for an info session. And there we will tell you and talk to you individually about how and all the great things that we're doing here at the University of Louisville and the OLL program to help take industry professionals' careers and learning expertise to the next level. Again, I want you to check us out at uofl.me/BSOLL-podcast. Again, uofl.me/BSOLL-podcast. Hey, I can't wait to see you in the classroom. However, I do want to segue a little bit, just a smidgen, may only get 1 or 2 questions in here, just a smidgen, into learning. So obviously we are professors, we are in higher education. So obviously I want to know, how does it work? All right. In your brain, how does this work? And this thing called learning. So in your opinion, how do you think learning takes place on the individual and on the group level?
I teach a class for thinking about sort of educational theory at the post-secondary, at the higher ed level, and about instructional strategies. And I usually start that class with a sort of hypothesis that learning is ultimately about change and it's about connection. And I talk with students about those 2 things are both based in the cognitive science of like how neurons fire in our brains, but also sort of the psychology and psychosocial nature of learning, where we're changing together as we sort of understand new things and sort of grow. So how does learning happen? I think that both at the individual and the group level, it's fundamentally about being open, remaining open to change, and forming connections, both among materials that we have, content that we learn, but among each other and ideas and values and philosophies. And I think that might be, that's hard on both levels, right? But it's different on the individual level. You're changing your little Cessna, your little sailboat, versus if you're trying to like change direction of an aircraft carrier or something. But I think they're fundamentally the same thing, right? It's like how learning is happening is, are we open to change and learning new things, right? Open to new things, and are we making connections in our brains and with each other?
Wow. So you see that learning is about understanding change and making connections. I think that, man,
yeah,
I got to sit in one of your classes, right? I know you're the student today on the interview, but I feel like I need to go back to school and I need you to be my teacher.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm humbled you would say that, but I feel like some of that students have helped me think about that too over time, as they've asked me, what is learning? How do I even know that people are learning? And there's a big debate in the higher ed world and student affairs. Are learning and development the same thing? And I feel like we could go through those semantics over and over again, but I think that there's an aspect of learning that involves this development, and I think that's where the connection comes in. Is we're not just about like memorizing some content and taking a test, but how does what we know fundamentally change how we interact with the world and how we consider ourselves, right? How are we bettering ourselves through whatever content we may learn? Engineering, leadership theory.
Right. Speaking of higher education, speaking of student affairs, I served as the director of residence life at 2 institutions.
Oh my goodness. You've been through the thick of it.
Listen, and I personally think that the director or any residence life staff, right? If you work in the Office of Residence Life, typically it falls under the Department of Student Affairs. You are at the cross point of learning and development. You are at the cross point of academic affairs
Mm.
and athletic
Yes.
affairs and student affairs. You are in the crosshairs every day. And if you fail to make learning and development, because you're taking sometimes 17-year-olds, depending on the institution when they came in,
Mhm.
all the way up to, if you have a grad school, 25-year-olds, and you have to create these learning communities where you're at the crux of development in your life. You're switching from adolescence to young adulthood, and it may be tougher than the teenage years,
Oh my goodness.
because I've had students I know that would say to me, Dr. Owens, I don't want to graduate because I don't think I'm ready to
Mm.
be an adult yet.
It's a lot
To
of
which
pressure.
I'm like, you're not ready to be an adult? What do you mean you're not ready to be an adult? And they say, I don't think I'm not ready. And I'm like, well, we've taught you. And then you have to, then when you hear that information, as a director of residence life, I had to go back and ask all of everyone, say, are we teaching them how to pay bills? Are we teaching them, like, we know they're learning in the classroom because they're here still on campus, right? But
Sure.
are we teaching them those life skills to develop out of our nest? Because we're like another nest. They go from home where everything was taken care of to
Sure.
college where everything's taken care of. And then we just say, hey, by the way, we're going to give you the eagle treatment. We're just going to drop you from the nest. And guess what? If you flap your wings hard enough and fast enough, you'll fly. And if not,
Yeah.
sorry.
Well, I think that brings up a good point that a lot of learning also needs there's challenge involved, right? Learning isn't necessarily, and development in particular is not about being easy. It's about
Right.
developing and moving into complexity. And so um, there's a key aspect in going to college. In some of the college literature, there's a discussion about how sometimes moving into college can be a traumatic event. And a lot
Mhm.
of that has to do in the literature of how sort of colleges have grown in certain sort of majority ways of like that what culture is valued and what identity is valued and those sorts of things. But I
Right.
think there's also an idea there that it is traumatic for people to leave home, to learn things they've never had to do before. And a part of our role, I mean, a part of Red's life, is to just hold people there, have a nest for them while they face that challenge. There's that
Yep.
sort of common balance of the challenge and support. But I mean, res life, that is it. I mean, emergencies, the overnight, the decisions people make at any time of day. I mean, you're there and you're facing it head on, right? That's
Man.
learning and development right there.
Every day. So if anyone ever doubts higher ed and learning and development, I would say go spend 1 month in the res life department, and you will
Yes,
learn really fast that if you can't figure out how to mesh learning and development, as development being, through whether you use Levinson's model of how you're matriculating through age or any other model out there, you're going to figure out real fast that some 18-year-olds, they think they're grown, but boy.
sure.
Okay, so enough about that. Right. So you mentioned earlier you had some mentors, right?
Mm.
So Seth Godin states that people need less mentors and more heroes. Interesting statement. I've asked several people. It's starting to become a fan favorite. I need to know, what do you think about that?
What do people think? Yes. So I'll be honest. My like reptilian brain, my like immediate reaction was like, this gets my goat. I do not like this idea. And the thing, I wrote something down because I watched the little clip of Seth saying that, is
Mhm.
I wrote down this clip that really got my craw, I think, was heroes don't need to know you exist. Right. And I was like, whoa, like I'm all about heroes. I read hero books to my 6-year-old every night before he goes to bed. And now he's trying to read them to me, right? Like superheroes, right?
Right.
Um, and so I get that. I like heroes, but also I think that there's a whole massification of education that all of us are experiencing all the time.
Mhm.
Any education process many of us have been a part of is like this massification of like learning. And I think that quote gets at it to me, is like, forego your individualized like feedback and seek just someone you can follow blindly who doesn't know you exist. And
Mhm.
I think one of the key science aspects of learning is that we need feedback toward a specific goal, and feedback and experience, right? There's a whole set of like cognitive science stuff, literature on the role of experience in learning. And
Mhm.
especially the older we get, I mean, I think about CardinOLL students in particular. I mean, adults who are coming to school because they know, what they want to learn. They're motivated and folks know what they want to learn. And so mentors give us that individualized feedback on what we want to learn. But here's something that I really liked. So I moved out of my reptilian brain and I said, okay, there's value in what Seth is saying right here. What is the value? And the thing that I really liked was the idea that we don't sit around and wait on a mentor to teach us how to do something sometimes. And we don't set up unrealistic expectations on some great person to bring us into goodness and learning, right? So there's a term that I'm going to sort of steal, or a concept I'm stealing from the National Center for Faculty Development and Diversity. I can talk a lot about that later. And they kind of have the idea of like a constellation of mentors, right? There's maybe a million things we need help with, and we want mentors in 10 to 12 areas of our work life. And so let's stop putting this undue pressure on some person to like be the greatest thing to us for everything. And let's think about 10 to 12 people who do 10 to 12 different things differently and can give us a little bit of feedback on little aspects. And then we release some of the pressure from those mentors, from the expectations, from the time we expect from people. And we, let ourselves just get in there and do the thing, get dirty, try the thing out, and then still seek those few people along the way who can give us that individualized feedback on what we want to learn. So I say, let's have it all. Let's have some mentors, but let's not give up on them, and let's have some heroes too, maybe.
No doubt, and I think you're right. I think you hit that. I think that constellation of, and I don't know if we say constellation of mentors. I don't know what the term we could use, but yeah, I think it's maybe just I think because I look at it as your tribe is your people that you're connected to, but maybe there is some constellation cloud out there that is a mesh of people that I can connect to and people that I will never connect to, but I know that are just doing it right. Yeah. Right. I've never met John Maxwell, but I think he's a phenomenal leadership guru, expert, subject matter expert. Not everyone agrees with his definition that leadership is influence. Fine, because we can read Northouse. Northouse has a total different definition of what leadership is, and that's perfectly fine. And I think he can be a hero too. Like, it's okay to have heroes that sometimes don't agree on things because I'm really pulling something different from them. I would pull from Northouse. Like, I think his definition is a little bit more practical. I think it's a bit more realistic. I think it's a bit more corporate, whereas John Maxwell has more of a spiritual or faith-based background. So his is a little bit, it touches in that arena. So maybe there's something you pull from that. And so I think there's, like you said, I think that there's this big nebulous out there that I think that we can all pull from to be great. I think I like the constellation kind of aspect, though. I'm going to steal that again. So as you can see,
I'm stealing that from the organization.
Well, I'm just saying, like, not only are you helping our Cardinal Nation with our golden nuggets, I think I'm stealing a couple golden nuggets from this interview myself. So
that's what it's all about. Is we're sharing, right? We come to our ideas as we kind of move through time and space and learning together. So let's do it.
Let's do it. So as we do that, Jess, I wanted to talk about the program that you head up, that you actually lead yourself. It's called MAHIA, right? For short, it stands for the Master of Art in Higher Education Administration. Could you tell Cardinal Nation, tell us about this Master of Art program in Higher Education Administration?
Love it. I would love it. And also Cardinal Nation folks are like just the right people to be thinking about careers in higher ed as well. Let me say that. So people who want to lead, who want to do good, and who also have experienced college in unique ways, right? Maybe online, maybe as adults coming back to school. So the Master in Higher Education Administration degree is the bomb. Number one, I think that working in higher ed is just the best thing ever. It's a really complex and unique organization where there's always good you can do and change you can make, but also fundamentally the mission of higher education is about the betterment, the development of each individual person, but also the betterment of society. I mean, I think about the research that's coming out of higher ed, of medical worlds and higher ed engineering worlds and architecture. I mean, it's a space of society betterment. So what better career than to work in a place where you're helping people be the best selves that they can be, help society be the best they can be, and all the meanwhile, go see some cool theater or sports or listen to some cool podcasts, all made and around you in a college environment. So the degree helps people to pursue careers working in higher education, sort of supporting the work, really everything but being a faculty member. So in a faculty line, you become an expert in whatever it is, biology or English literature or philosophy. But in the higher education support world, so all of the functions you can think about in higher ed that aren't just directly faculty members, a lot of those folks have a master's in higher education administration. So it's a great degree to get for a great career.
Got you. And so I saw on the website, I looked at your website. Yes, I
Oh, yeah.
did. I did a little research myself, it's kind of what I have to do, unfortunately. Right. And it mentioned that you're going to learn the business of higher education.
Mhm.
So when it comes to the business of higher education, what do you think we need to know? What are some key things that are happening in higher ed right now? Clearly, we're aware of COVID, but maybe there's something else we need to be aware of or needs a spotlight shown on it.
Well, let me feature kind of some of the unique things about the institution that is higher education. I mean, we can lead and learn about, and Cardinal Nation folks learn about what leadership theory and organizational theory and all those kinds of things. What makes higher ed unique? And that's what you learn in this program. So, for example, let's take decision making, right? So there are collegial decision making processes in higher education where you have somebody at the top who has a leader status, right? They have got the positional power and they can't make a decision because there's a collegial body that has to vote to make that decision. That's super cool, I think, right? There's this tension at play. So how do you navigate that in higher ed? Okay, so that's something you'll learn. Second, how about the flow of resources, right? Well, we have tuition dollars, we have grant dollars, we have state and public funding, we have endowment funding. Let's fill in the blank. We have events, right? We're pulling in money for sports, but we can't move that money all over the board, right? You can't move something somewhere where you need it because things have sort of policy. So how do you manage resources in that strange environment? So you learn that. How about unique actors or players in higher education? And let's focus maybe specifically on students. If our goal is to support students succeed, well, students have different backgrounds and different experiences and different identities and different developmental pathways. So let's learn about students and how can we help different students succeed. So you got that. And maybe I'll stop at this one, but we could keep going. One might be thinking about sort of diversity, fostering equity and inclusion. This is a priority, I think, everywhere you go, right? But also in higher ed, there are some key reasons why. There are historical inequities in higher ed, and it is, it's time to change the game. It is time to change fundamentally access to higher education. And it's also, there's an imperative to diversity and inclusion in higher education because fundamentally, when we bring people together, when we diverse people together, we have better learning. I mean, that's in the science, that's in the psychology, that's in the principle of learning. And so how do you do that in higher education? How do you strategically lead for diversity in this very important, unique organization? So you learn that. So we could keep going, but those are a few key things about the business of higher ed that we help students think about, and we help them identify what matters most to you through a lot of these classes, and how can we help you learn based on the sort of pathway that most is of interest to you. Is it about policy? Is it about supporting students? Is it about leading in administration?
Right. I love it. But, here's what I love most about everything you just mentioned. So recently I was redoing our informational session slides, and I put together our leadership, right? And it starts with the president, Dr. Neely Bendapudi, right? Female, woman of color, right?
Just awesome.
Whatever. Just awesome, right?
But
then, so I kind of did like this 1-2 list, right? So it's like one, and then typically number two at most colleges, the provost is your number two person because they oversee, faculty and all the things that go along with that, to include community outreach. But then, I looked at our provost, female, nice, right? But then I would go down to our college, right? And it's Dean Lingo, right? Her number, and then, woman, right? Female. Right. I don't even know the correct terms to use anymore these days. I just want to get it right. Right.
Right.
Her number two, I believe, is Dr. Hancock, if I'm not mistaken. Right. Female. Right. Then you come down to our program. Right. Then there's me, program director, Black male. Then you have Randy, Black male. And I'm like, just looking at from the top to our program, there is everything in between. There is no traditional person per se in power. Well, let me take that back. Kyle is the assistant chair, right? He's a white guy. So if we look through the whole process, Dr. Engel is like the only quote unquote, would you say in a pre-diversity focused world, he's the only norm there. And it's one person out of like 8 people, which is unique. And I think that when you're talking about diversity and inequities, and I'm like, but sometimes if we just look at just the University of Louisville, right, we are A prime example. But I guess it goes to prove that, when Dr. Benaputi said she wanted to be the #1 anti-racist metropolitan institution in the country, if you look from OLL up, it's very diverse. You're going to get different viewpoints, different angles. Who makes a decision? Everybody's going to be at the table. There's white, there's black, there's anything in between. If we look at Dr. Sheffield, who's holding up our HROD program, he's Native American. So I mean, I'm like, this is
it.
This is it, right? Like if this is the model, so the University of Louisville is the real model for the Mejia program. If for those that are interested, and I think everyone should be interested. I think there's so much you can do with. And I think sometimes people say, well, it's higher education. What am I going to do with a higher education? What if I want to get outside of higher education? But like you just mentioned, you're going to have to make decisions no matter what industry you're in. And you're going to have to learn how to get the right people at the table to get that decision made. You're going to have to learn how your resources come in. That's just not a higher education thing. That's a business thing, right? Even if you're an entrepreneur, you got to know, where's my money coming from?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, and you bring up a good point that what if I want what do I do if I decide I don't want to work in higher ed? Well, a lot of people have this degree and actually they use it elsewhere because they have so many transferable skills and working and building with teams and diverse individuals. So we have some who shift into HR, some who go on to lead and work in national organizations and nonprofits affiliated with promoting access and equity in education. Some go on to become consultants. So there's a lot of transferable skills and friends we have who translate among the disciplines. But, I agree. I'm so proud to be a part of the U of L team and the U of L sort of structure that you've brought up, is I feel like we have a diverse group of people that can lead and make change. And I think sometimes you get people in positions and you're better able to change culture, but that doesn't mean culture changes automatically. So there's some stuff that, we may still need to be working on as a team. And I'm excited that we have the call to do that in certain ways, right? Like let's do this together. Let's get our hands dirty, as I keep saying, and figure out how do we make changes to ensure that this is an equitable place and that higher education as a whole is.
Yeah. And like I said, I think if you just look at the blueprint of what the University of Louisville is doing from top down, I can't speak for every department, but I definitely can speak for the College of Education, Human Development, and our way up, all the way up to the residence office. It's diverse, it's unique. It's you always will feel heard. I mean, and and I like it, for a plethora of reasons. I think it just works, right? I think it's if we really say what we believe, that in order to have true innovation, you have to have as many diverse experiences and minds in the room as possible. I mean, if you believe it, right? Because a lot of people can say it, right? A lot of people can say a lot of things, but if you really believe it, you'll actually see it. And I think when you get into certain rooms and there's certain meetings and you see diversity amongst all types of leadership, I think it's true. I think the University of Louisville is putting its money where its mouth is. And I think we're seeing the results of that, even in our student enrollment, even in why people want to come to the University of Louisville, even in, the pride that people have in the graduates that want to give back and be a part and stay around and like get me involved in something, anything. I've had many podcast guests say, what else can I do for the university? What else can I do for university? I don't know. There's a million things, and I think that's a testament because they feel like their voice is seen and heard, no matter if they're black, white, purple, green, or yellow, male or female, or anything in between. And I think that's what you want. That's what you want in a university, because that's how I think that's how we make the society better, in my opinion.
Yeah, and as you're talking, it brings up to me this term, this idea, which is some of the research that I do on belonging. And a part of a good institution, I think, is they invite and think about belonging on multiple levels and for diverse people. So people of diverse races, gender, religions, social class backgrounds in particular. And I think what you're identifying is that people find belonging in this place, and that is a result of hopefully being listened to. If something's not perfect, that they're called to speak up and share. And I hope that we can continue to cultivate that together. In our programs, in the institution as a whole, is who are we listening to and how are we inviting belonging?
I love it.
Act on what we hear.
I love it. But we talked about everybody else. We talked about from the top down, but let's talk about some internal things. Let's talk about this, right? Your program has all these accolades, awards. You're number 1, number 2, number 5, number 7 in the world, in the country, U.S. News and World Report. I'm telling you, if you look at the Mejia program, it has more. I mean, it's probably top 5 in just about everything out there, top 10 in everything. But I know, we speak about it. We talked about Sawubona a little bit. Standing on the shoulders of greatness, having a great team around you. This is what it is. You have a great team around you. Let's highlight some of your great team. And that's right. I said, let's brag about them for a minute. So let's take a minute and let's brag about some of your stellar faculty.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this, and I know we don't have forever, but I'm going to take just a minute to talk about every single person on the team, on the full-time faculty team. I'm not even going to get to our part-time and affiliate faculty team who have titles like provosts and chiefs of staff and all these amazing folks. So, but our full-time faculty team, I'll start with Dr. Jeff's son, who was recently recognized as a Distinguished University Scholar, which is the top honor you can get at the university for your scholarship. Few people have that honor. And he's one of the foremost scholars on sort of political instruments and how they foster and inhibit civil liberties and civil rights. So freedom of speech, you want to know about that? He's your guy, and he's the guy for everybody in the nation. They look into Dr. Sun. Maybe I'll take next Dr. Jake Gross, who recently has a grant from the ECMC Foundation where he's studying former foster care youth and how campuses can better support those students. And he's an expert in policies and programs that support student success, especially when it comes to financial aid. Next, I'll highlight Dr. Casey George, recently promoted to associate professor, who studies student experiences from STEM to ROTC and complex tuition policies. This is going to be good ones for parents out there. You want to see what she has to say about this, and those of you going to college. How institutions make those policies and how do families navigate them. Her work is supported by NSF and by the Spencer Foundation. Dr. Megan Pfeiffer, a chair of a department in our program and an expert on faculty careers and faculty developments, and she also studies military students. She wrote one of the textbooks on faculty development.
Nice.
Dr. Ashwanzia Rivers, who has a new edited book coming out, so look for that. She studies the value of community cultural wealth in underserved communities and is currently working on grants and contracts leading diversity, equity, and inclusion work in large organizations. Just a few more. I'm going to keep going. Dr. Bob Cermak, who is just recently finished with his PhD from Michigan State, one of the top programs, has some really interesting work on the internationalization as it relates to curriculum. And we're so excited that he has sort of started his faculty career with us. And we've just welcomed sort of who are working from another part of the university, Dr. Nina Fink, who studies issues of course alignment. And she is an expert instructional designer, and she is helping us push our boundaries on how we think about engaging teaching, especially in online spaces. And then finally, Dr. Kelly Peck-Parrott, who is a full clinical faculty member, which is a unique position in higher education to be a full clinical professor. And she does research around student affairs and has an edited book actually on careers in higher education. So if folks are really interested in working in higher ed, check out her book. And she leads a number of our military connected programs. Talked a lot about that, but we have almost 50%, maybe more than 50% of our students are actually military students, military connected students. And she leads a number of our programs with U.S. Army Cadet Command and U.S. Army Recruiting and Retention College. So we have just a powerhouse team. And, almost every single person on this list who's been teaching at U of L has won teaching awards. People love being in their classrooms. They love learning with them. And speaking of mentors, I think each of these folks are great mentors for folks who are in their classrooms. So I'm super proud to be a part of that team and grateful that you gave me a little moment to highlight them.
That's amazing. You have a stellar all-star cast. When I grow up, I want to be like you. I want a team like yours.
I mean, they are amazing, and they win teaching awards at the university. Folks I've talked about the research, but people, really value them as mentors and as folks who really engage learning and care about them in the classroom. So super proud to be a part of that team. And I'll say again, I haven't even talked about some of our part-time faculty who are also rock stars in ways in which they're leading higher education in their various positions. So grateful for the whole team.
No doubt, no doubt. And I think, even though I like your team and I would love to be on your team, I think that the only team that rivals your team on the entire campus is that of the OLL with Dr. Matt Bergman, with Roger Buskell, with Dr. Ann Hurd, with Dr. Randy Whetstone, with myself, and with Dr. Deborah Murphy. That's the only team I think that can rival what you have out there. That's just my personal opinion, but I think the OLL team is we're a group of rock stars.
There's a rival. And what I think too is that together, I mean, I feel like we're all really on sort of one different aspects of the same team. So I think that's even better. It's the way we can support one another and, lift each other up. So I say, let's join our forces.
Hey, let's do it. Let's get the Voltron action going. Let's get some Voltron action going.
Yes.
So before I let you out of here today, Jess, I like to have fun with all of our guests that we have on the podcast. And we have this little segment that we call Rapid Fire. So Rapid Fire is real simple. It's 5 questions. Say the first thing that comes to your mind, right? And then I think that's how we go rapid fire. 5 questions. First thing that comes to your mind. I think they're fun. Some are funny. Some are interesting. But here we go. Round 1, rapid fire. Here we go. If you could pick one word to describe your life so far, what would it be and why?
Honor. Ooh. Honor to live the life. Honor to have it.
Love it. Great answer. Rapid fire. Question 2. What are 3 non-negotiable characteristics that anyone on your team or tribe has to have?
I'm laughing because I'm thinking about whether my kids like these or not. So number 1, this is tied together: willingness to problem solve and stop complaining. So that's number 1. Number 2, I think, is ability to stop when needed, to engage in reflection and restoration. I think Mr. Dr. Buckley is best at that one. And number 3 is gratitude. Recognize the miracle that is every human cell functioning, and be grateful for what we have.
I love it. Those are great answers. No one's ever given you, and no one ever repeats. You guys are phenomenal. All right, rapid fire. Question number 3. What is your favorite dessert?
Oh, all of them. I got a sweet tooth, even though I try to be healthy. But I have a soft spot for a cookie. I often ask for a solid cookie for my birthday instead of a cake.
Now, what type of cookie?
Oh, I mean, I love a traditional chocolate chip. I've been playing around with the New York Times banging method. I don't know if you've done that.
No, what's that?
Everybody Google that. New York Times banging. So it's a process. You just like put the cookies in and then you bang them every few minutes, and it helps them spread out, get crispy on the outside and chewy on the inside. Ooh. But I also love a good like molasses ginger cookie. Lemon cookies. I mean, give me a cookie. I'll eat it.
I like it. I like it. Here we go. I'm the same way. So I'm a sucker for a good cookie. Yeah. Here we go. If you could do your career all over again, right? What industry would you think you have worked in?
When I was little, I wanted to be an astronaut, but then I got too dizzy when they put me in the machine that turns you around. I think probably environmental sustainability. I don't know doing what, but my dissertation was how we teach environmental sustainability across the disciplines. And I just think there are lots of cool careers opening up around, how we do things in better ways for ourselves and for the environment. And that'd be a fun one to work in.
Love it. Here we go. Rapid fire question number 5. It's the most inquisitive, cognitive, complex question I could come up with. If you could sit with your 13-year-old self, what would you tell her?
I think about where was I when I was 13? I think I was an 8th grader in Florence, Alabama, listening to Mary Chapin Carpenter, and wearing socks that were too tall. I think, and you know what? I was the state basketball Knights of Columbus free throw champion. I would tell myself that was the end of my basketball career. It peaked there, so don't have high expectations after that. But I also think that I was becoming a perfectionist. I would tell myself, don't worry so much about being a perfectionist.
Okay.
Let it go.
Interesting connection between Dr. Buckley and myself. My family is from the one and the only Florence, Alabama. If you don't know the Natchez Trace, you're not from really Florence, Alabama.
Natchez Trace. We drove it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
I think that's the only way to get from one side of town to the other for the most part.
Oh, my goodness.
Great questions on rapid fire. This is the last question I ask all my guests, all my friends, all my colleagues, all my peers, all my loved ones who are on here, who have joined Cardinal Nation and joined the Cardinal Call podcast. It's the one question that everyone loves, but everyone struggles with. So I never will change it until you guys start answering it smoothly. If your life was the title of a book, made up or real, what would it be and why?
Can I steal from someone?
It can be real, yeah.
I think I would steal. This is from a Langston Hughes poem. And I think that I would title it Dig and Be Dug. And there's a whole lot going in there, but I think the idea is sort of that we, treat other people well and, be grateful for when we are appreciated ourselves, when I'm appreciated. And I think there's an element in there too of, working through oppressions and privileges and trying to work for goodness and equity. So dig and be dug.
Dig and be dug. Yeah, I'm definitely buying that book. If you write one, I'm getting it. I got it. It's going into the catalogs. I love the title, Dig and Be Dug. It has so much, just in the title, you can think of so many things. My mind started wandering for a minute, like, why would you pick that title? But then as you explain, like, it makes so much sense, right? There's so much in that title that I love it. Anyway, nevertheless.
Langston Hughes. Go check out, if people are listening, check out Langston Hughes' motto. It's a super short poem, but it's one I like. Motto.
Got it.
I'm stealing from him.
There's nothing wrong. We don't steal in academia. We just borrow.
We cite.
Sometimes. We cite. Yeah, we cite. We cite. We're citing because you gave credit, so it's not stealing. Right. You gave credit. So here we go. Final thought. Right. We talked everything from leadership to learning to Mejia to great faculty to great teams to great tribes to family to support to everything. But what is your wise counsel that you would shout to the mountaintops that you want everyone to hear? Cardinal Nation, Mejia students thinking about Mejia, want to join Mejia, trying to figure out what they want to do with life, whatever it is you want to say, take the floor is yours. What are you shouting from the mountaintop?
The thing that comes directly to my mind is be you. I think we spend a lot of time in sort of a society that has us saying what it thinks we need to be and where we think we need to go. And that can relate to our careers or how we pursue our careers or how we think about our families. But ultimately, an organization that supports you and a team that supports you is going to thrive because you are being your authentic self. So do it with pride and maybe with attention to feedback along the way too.
I love it. Be you. That was the best way to end the interview, right? It's simple, it's profound, it's prolific, it's authentic, it's real, it's everything you want. Jess, this has been an amazing interview. I couldn't think of a better person. Oh my gosh.
It's been so great to be with you and get the chance to reflect, honestly, right? I feel like you move through your day and don't think about all of these things, and some really awesome, epic questions. So thank you for asking some things that got me thinking today.
That's awesome. So we're going to let you get back to making the Mejia program one of the stellar highlight master programs that we offer in the College of Education, Human Development. You're doing a phenomenal job. I know it. You won't say it. I'll say it for you. I'm going to give you your flowers. I'm going to give you the parade right now. She's great. She's phenomenal. If you're out there and you need a master's degree, go look at the Mejia program. Clearly, the skills out there are transferable, not just in higher education, but across the world, worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, Jess, Buckley, thank you. Thank you,
Sean. Have a good one. Take care, Cardinal Nation.
Cardinal Nation, I told you you're in for a treat. Another home run guest with Dr. Jess Buckley. And here's my notes to prove it. Listen, the golden nuggets that she provided us today, connected to leadership, connected to learning, and connected to being influential, and even connected to the Mejia program, were amazing. Leaders, let's try this on for size. How about adding healthy ways and ethics to your definition? Make sure that you're an ethical leader and make sure you're bringing value to your people by doing it in a healthy way. And when it comes to learning, it's a collaborative process. You can't do this in a vacuum. You can't do it by yourself. Get around some great people, find some great mentors, and find some great heroes. And what more can I say about the Mejia program? You heard it directly from her. It's full of great faculty. It has great staff. And let me tell you, her alum are phenomenal. No doubt about it. No questions asked. But listen, let me tell you, one of the most important things that I learned from the day was what Dr. Buckley just said. It's all sort of centered around you being you. She said it best, just be you. The world needs the authentic, the best version of you. So listen, if you want to learn to do all these things and be you and be the best version of you, here's what I want you to do. Get your mobile device, go on your computer, your laptop, type in uofl.me/podcast-OLL. Again, that's uofl.me/podcast-OLL. Once you pull that up, you're going to see all of our certificates, our bachelor's, our master's, our graduate degree programs, and even our PhD program connected to all the wonderful OLL programs here at the wonderful, the amazing, the University of Louisville. Listen, there's no doubt in my mind that today we took your leadership and your learning and jacked it up to the next level. So if you like what you heard, if you love what you heard, if you want to hear more of what you heard, this is what I need you to do. I need you to download, I need you to like, I need you to subscribe, I need you to give comments so that you always know that the CardinOLL podcast is doing some phenomenal things and notifying you of when great things are being dropped on all of our sites. Listen, as we say around here, you've heard me say it, well, at least 30 times already. You can count the number of seeds in an apple, but you can never count the number of apples in a seed. Why? Because when you teach, you will never know how many lives that you just are influencing. So listen, Cardinal Nation, there's a few things that I need you to keep doing and keep doing well and do better than anybody else. The first, I need you to keep leading. Second, I need you to keep learning. And third, I need you to keep influencing. I want you, if you're not a part of Cardinal Nation, join Cardinal Nation. Become one of the family members. We want you in the nation. Check us out, uofl.me/podcast-OLL. Again, uofl.me/podcast-OLL. So until next week, you know what I want you to do. Take care and stay safe.